They're storms that arrive not in the sky, but in the soul. A single insult, a sudden problem, an unexpected betrayal. And most people collapse. Their emotions sway like trees in the wind, snapping under pressure. But a few rare individuals stand unmoved, as if armored from within. The world calls them cold, detached, even ruthless. But Musashi would call them free. Miyamoto Musashi, undefeated in 60 duels, knew what it meant to walk through chaos without flinching. He faced warriors who wanted him dead, critics who despised his way of life, and conditions that would have broken ordinary men. Yet through all of it, his mind remained immovable. He did not chase calm. He became calm. What does it take to reach that level of strength? Not avoidance, not luck, but discipline so relentless that neither pain nor praise can sway you. Today, through Musashi's principles and the trials of modern warriors, you will see how to forge a mind that nothing and no one can shake. Musashi understood that before you can master any opponent, you must master your own foundation. His life showed that stability is not only about standing firm on your feet, but about holding steady in your mind. He trained his spirit to remain unmoved no matter how violent the storm around him. Others lost balance when insulted or challenged, but Musashi stood as if he were part of the earth itself. That was a secret. Unshakable grounding that made him untouchable. John lived in an environment where criticism and pressure were constant. Every negative comment from his colleagues pierced his confidence like arrows. A small remark was enough to derail his entire day. He thought the problem was the cruelty of others, but the truth was his foundation was weak. His self-image shifted with every word spoken around him, leaving him vulnerable. When John discovered Musashi's principled grounding, he decided to change. Instead of responding to every insult, he began to root himself in silence. At first, it felt unnatural. His instincts screamed for defense, to argue, to explain himself. But over time, as he practiced holding still, he noticed something. Words lost their power. They hit him, but they no longer entered him. This transformation shocked even John. The same voices that once dominated him became background noise. What had changed? Not the voices, not the world, but his stance. He realized that strength was not about silencing others, but about becoming immune to their noise. Like Musashi, he found his ground and refused to be moved. Protocol. The next time you feel shaken by criticism, do not respond immediately. Instead, plant your feet firmly on the ground, inhale deeply, and remind yourself that you are the foundation, not the storm. Picture your mind as stone, steady, silent, unmoved. Practice this daily until stillness becomes your first instinct. Musashi warned that the greatest weakness of the mind is its dependence on the judgment of others. He learned from teachers, sparred with rivals, and observed monks, but he never surrendered his own judgment. He understood that respect and dependence are different things. Respect sharpens a mind. Dependence weakens it. To Musashi, relying on another's approval was like fighting with borrowed swords, sharp only until they are taken away. Michael lived in constant reflection of others. If his boss praised him, he felt valuable. If a friend criticized him, his mood collapsed. His days were not guided by his principles, but by the unstable winds of external validation. The mirror of others defined his worth, and when that mirror cracked, so did his spirit. He was never truly himself, only the echo of voices around him. This cycle exhausted him. No matter how hard he worked, one negative word erased his progress in an instant. Michael began to realize that he was not living his life, but acting in a performance for the approval of the audience. The applause controlled him, and the silence destroyed him. He was enslaved, not by chains of iron, but by opinions too fragile to hold. When he turned to Musashi's wisdom, he made a radical shift. He stopped asking endless questions about what others thought of his choices. He began making decisions alone, with no safety net of reassurance. At first, the silence was terrifying. Without the mirror of others, he felt invisible. But slowly, he discovered a new kind of strength, the ability to stand by his own reflection, unshaken. Protocol. For the next week, choose one important decision each day and make it without seeking anyone's opinion. Do not ask for reassurance. Do not wait for permission. Let discomfort sharpen you. At the end of the week, Reflect not on whether the decision was right or wrong, but on the strength you gain by owning it fully. Musashi lost his father at a young age, a wound that could have destroyed his spirit. Instead, he chose to transform that pain into fuel. Every swing of his sword, every hour of practice, carried the fire of defiance. He refused to let tragedy make him a victim. To him, fire was not something to fear, but something to direct. Left uncontrolled, it burns. Controlled, it forges. David carried a similar fire, though he didn't see it that way. Every rejection at work, every disappointment in life, left him bitter. His anger turned inward, eating at him until he doubted his worth. He believed the voice of anger was his enemy, never realizing it could become his greatest ally if he redirected it. One night, after another failure, David remembered Musashi's principle. Instead of drowning in self-hatred, he wrote down everything that angered him. He turned each frustration into a challenge the next day. More push-ups, more focus, healthier choices. Each task became a weapon forged from his fury. Slowly, the anger that once destroyed him began to build him. The world calls this madness. Why channel rage instead of burying it? But Musashi understood that raw emotions are energy. If you bury them, they rot. If you direct them, they transform into discipline. Anger at mediocrity can become the fire that destroys weakness. Protocol. Each evening, list the 3 things that frustrate you most about your behavior. Do not curse them, convert them. Turn each one into a specific goal for tomorrow. This ritual transforms anger into progress. Musashi owned little, slept in caves, and lived as a wanderer. To many, this looked like poverty, even madness. But Musashi knew the secret. By needing nothing, he could never be controlled. If comfort is your master, then discomfort becomes your executioner. Detachment was his way of freedom, the armor that no one could pierce. John was the opposite. His productivity depended on the perfect desk, the right coffee, the exact music. Without them, he collapsed. Every lost convenience became a lost battle. He thought these comforts made him strong, but in truth, they revealed his fragility. When John embraced Musashi's detachment, he began deliberately stripping away supports. He worked in noisy places, trained without music, ate simpler meals. At first, it was torture, but soon he noticed a new strength rising. His performance no longer depended on perfect conditions. He was steady whether life was smooth or rough. This detachment looked strange to his peers. Why choose difficulty? Why reject ease? Yet Musashi knew, if you cannot live without comfort, you cannot live with strength. By being indifferent to gain or loss, you gain the power of invincibility. Protocol. Once this week, remove one comfort you believe you need. Skip it, endure without it, and train your mind to stay steady. Do this until you no longer fear the absence of what you once thought essential. Musashi wrote that it takes 1,000 days to develop discipline and 10,000 to master it. He was not exaggerating. His life was measured in decades of repetition, not weeks of excitement. But it was not only his sword that he repeated, it was his calm. Stillness was a skill he carved into his spirit until storms no longer shook him. Michael attempted meditation once, hoping for instant calm. After 5 minutes, his thoughts screamed, and he quit. He believed stillness was a talent you either had or didn't. He never imagined it could be trained the same way Musashi trained his sword, through endless repetition, long after boredom arrived. When Michael finally committed, he sat in silence every day for a year. At first, it was agony. His mind resisted, his body fidgeted. But slowly, silence stopped being an enemy. It became a teacher. By the end of that year, situations that once made him panic now barely stirred him. His mind had learned to return to calm as naturally as breathing. Most people see this and call it madness, to sit still while the world races. But Musashi knew that in battle, the one who panics first is the one who dies. Stillness was not a luxury. It was survival. Protocol. Choose a small daily practice of stillness. 10 minutes of silence, no devices, no distractions. Commit to it for at least 1,000 days. The reward will not come quickly, but when it comes, it will never leave. Musashi understood the power of restraint. He could win battles with his blade, but he also knew when not to swing. His silence cut deeper than words, because it revealed who was truly in control. To argue with every critic is to hand them your energy. To remain silent is to show them their power never reached you. David struggled with this his entire life. Every insult online, every disagreement at work, pulled him into argument. He wrote long defenses, desperate to prove his worth. But each battle left him weaker, more drained, and more reactive. He was trapped in endless wars that never needed to exist. When David decided to practice Musashi silence, the change was immediate. The first time he ignored a cruel comment, the critic grew frustrated, while David felt stronger. Each time he refused to engage, his discipline deepened. He realized that silence does not mean surrender. It means mastery. The world misunderstands silence. They see it as weakness, when in fact it is strength too deep to waste on petty disputes. Musashi's silence was a weapon invisible yet sharp, because it preserved his focus for battles that mattered. Protocol. The next time you are attacked by words, resist the urge to defend yourself. Stay silent, breathe, and let your actions speak in time. You will feel the immediate pull to respond, but that pull is your enemy. Learn to sever it. Between the weak and the strong is how quickly they rise again. Musashi never let failure multiply. If he faltered in discipline, he corrected the same day, refusing to let one mistake breed 1,000. His return speed made him unstoppable. John was trapped in the cycle of guilt. Each time he missed a workout or failed to keep a habit, he fell into weeks of regret. One broken day became a broken month. His true enemy was not failure, but delay. The longer he stayed down, the weaker he became. When John embraced Musashi's principle, he changed his approach completely. Instead of punishing himself for slipping, he resumed instantly. If he broke his diet at lunch, he returned to discipline at dinner. If he overslept one morning, he fought harder the next. He stopped making failure a prison and turned it into a spark. This shift looked extreme to his friends. They thought it obsessive to restart so quickly, as if he refused to be human. But John knew the truth. Failure is not dangerous. Hesitation is. The faster the return, the less power failure holds. Protocol. The next time you fail, do not wait for tomorrow or Monday. Return to your discipline within the same day, even the same hour. Refuse to delay. Let speed of return be your true measure of strength. Musashi, undefeated in over 60 duels, could have claimed mastery. Yet even at 50, after decades of victories, he declared, "I have not yet reached the way." That humility kept him hungry. The wind carries all things without claiming to own them. Musashi carried knowledge without arrogance, and this kept him sharp long after others had grown dull. Michael fell into the trap of early success. After a few small wins, he stopped learning, stopped seeking mentors, and believed he had arrived. At first, his pride disguised itself as confidence, but soon his performance began to decline. Pride made him blind to his weaknesses, and the fall came quickly. When he rediscovered humility, his discipline reignited. He returned to study, observing others who surpassed him. Instead of envying them, he treated their superiority as a compass, pointing him toward growth. By seeing himself as a student again, he regained the hunger that pride had killed. This approach shocked his peers. Why would someone successful act like a beginner? But Musashi knew the truth. Arrogance is the enemy of mastery. The moment you believe you have reached the summit, you stop climbing, and that is when you fall. Protocol. Once a month, study someone far greater than you. Instead of comparison, use their example as fuel. Let their strength remind you of how much you still have to learn. Musashi reduced life to its essence. Sword, practice clarity. Complexity weakens because it divides attention. Simplicity strengthens because it directs all energy into one blade. He owned little, pursued little, and eliminated what was not essential. By doing less, he achieved more than any man of his time. David did the opposite. His life was filled with dozens of productivity apps, endless routines, and countless strategies. His mind was scattered in 1,000 directions, and when stress came, everything collapsed. He believed more tools made him stronger, but in truth, they made him fragile. When David embraced simplicity, he found clarity. He cut away unnecessary systems, focused on one method, and practiced it relentlessly. At first, he feared he was losing efficiency, but soon he discovered he was sharper, faster, and calmer. His energy no longer leaked into trivial things. This simplicity looked extreme to others. They could not understand why he gave up so many supports. But Musashi's way is not about what you add. It is about what you cut away. Simplicity is the sword that slices through distraction. Protocol. Look at your routines and eliminate one unnecessary tool or practice. Choose one path, one method, and commit to it until mastery. Strength comes not from variety, but from depth. Musashi did not practice discipline. He became discipline itself. His choices were not battles of willpower. They were natural expressions of who he was. Like stone, he did not argue with storms. He simply endured. His identity was his shield. He no longer asked what to do. He simply acted. John lived in endless negotiation with himself. Every day, he debated whether to follow through with his habits. Each choice drained him because discipline was something external, something he forced. As long as discipline was outside his identity, he remained vulnerable. When John shifted his language, everything changed. He stopped saying, "I'm trying to be disciplined." He began saying, "I am disciplined." At first, it felt like a lie, but soon his actions began to follow his words. He realized identity is stronger than effort. Others thought it strange, even delusional. How could he call himself disciplined when he wasn't perfect? But Musashi would have said the same. You become what you claim and live by daily. Identity shapes reality more than excuses ever will. Protocol. Rewrite your self-talk. Replace "I will try" with "I am." Repeat it until your actions begin to align with your identity. The mind follows the image you hold of yourself. The storms of life will never cease. Criticism will always come. Problems will always rise. But Musashi proved that a warrior can be forged into something that chaos cannot move. To remain unshaken is not to live in a quiet world. It is to create a quiet mind. People will misunderstand this strength. They will call you cold, detached, even insane. But that is only because they cannot imagine standing while everything else falls. What looks like madness to them is freedom to you. Your task is not to silence the storm, but to become a stone that no storm can move. This is the essence of Musashi's way. Not perfection, but constancy. Not avoidance, but resilience. The world will call you mad, but you will know you are free. Bonus teaching. Musashi once wrote, "Do nothing that is of no use." This is the final armor. Cut away every useless thought, every wasted action, every empty distraction. What remains is pure focus. And with pure focus, you will discover the highest strength, a mind that nothing and no one can shake.